Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Good Boxing Podcast with their host, Josh Size. And let's jump right into this episode. Now, I'm really shocked that this fight isn't getting more coverage. And this is a fight that no one is really talking about. And truthfully, I'm a little upset at myself for not breaking down this fight and giving more credence to the fighter at hand. Jermell Charlo is embarking on greatness. He's on the cusp of accomplishing a very daunting task, and that's becoming the undisputed champion at 154. Now, undisputed seems to be the flavor of the year, the flavor of the month, the flavor of the day. Everyone's looking to kind of bring all the belts together and show that they're undeniably the best in a division. Canelo's doing it. He's looking to fight Caleb Plant come September or October or whenever they fight. Teofimo Lopez did it against Lomachenko, and after that, Josh Taylor did it against Jose Ramirez. Then you had Clarissa Shields, who's done it in two divisions at the same time, right? So I'm going to sit here and tell you that what Jermell Charlo is doing is very underrated. Now, when you look at this fight on paper, Brian Castano, who's Brian Castano? Oh, just another paper champion or whatever. You really haven't seen him on the prime time networks fighting. And I'm going to be honest with you. At first, I had saw him fight Erislandy Lara, and I don't know if I fell asleep. I just don't remember seeing him fight. And I was doing a deep dive. I'm like, all right, Charlo's going to fight on my birthday, July 17th. I wanted to give a fair shot to Charlo because I actually do like Jermell Charlo. I feel like he gets a bad rap due to the fact that every time you hear about Charlo, it's somewhat of a negative connotation. His behavior leading up to the Tony Harrison fight and the second one where Harrison was saying that he's a baby and was crying and was emotional. And Charlo lost his cool. He was very upset at the fact that Tony Harrison was making fun of Charlo, basically poking him and making fun of him for the fact that he lost and he can't take it. Charlo was supposed to beat Harrison, and Harrison pulled off a very controversial decision. But if you go watch that fight, I can see how Harrison won. I think he won by maybe 1 or 2 rounds. But again, you know how boxing is. You flip 2 rounds, give or take, there's a swing. You can say that Jermell Charlo could have pulled it off. I don't agree with you, but I think Harrison rightfully won the fight. But regardless of the fact, they had the rematch. Jermell Charlo got his redemption, got his retribution. And look, Harrison fought a good fight, got careless, and Jermell Charlo did what a champion does, and that's seize your opportunity. He knocked out Harrison, and there's been no rematch. He never got his rematch, and poor Tony Harrison has been struggling since. Now, Brian Castano, who is he? Right? Is he just a paper champion, somebody that beat Patrick Teixeira? Yeah, he beat Patrick Teixeira. But what you guys don't know is, just like Jermell Charlo has beaten Gabe Rosado, Erickson Hammer Lubin early in his career, but knocked him out in 1 round. That uppercut where he catches both punches with one hand, then comes back with the uppercut and knocks out Lubin, possibly might be the best Charlo highlight ever, in my opinion. It's such a good counter and such a perfectly timed punch that I was actually shocked that there was turbulence in the Charlo camp. I'm shocked that he left. I'm shocked that he moved on to train with Errol Spence, and I'm shocked because he looks so dominant in that victory. But I'm gonna sit here and say this: Jermell Charlo's resume isn't that bad. People think, oh, 154 isn't stacked. No, that's not true. Lubin, Rosado, he beat Jason Rosario, right, who just recently fought. And now he's fighting Brian Castano. And you think that, oh, Jermell Charlo's fought really good guys. He's done this, he's done that. Now, when I tell you this is going to be the hardest fight of Jermell Charlo's, not only life, but of his career, it's going to be the hardest fight of his life. And this is where I want to give hats off and kudos to Jermell Charlo. You may not know Brian Castano as a household name. He's not an Errol Spence or a Terrence Crawford or Canelo Alvarez or even a Jermell Charlo, let alone someone like Gabe Rosado who has a name and just somehow always pokes himself into relevancy when he knocked out Molecular or whatever the guy's name was he just recently knocked out. I'm drawing a blank. But Brian Castano can fucking fight. And when I tell you this, be on the lookout. This fight is going to be a war. I'm not going to prognosticate who's going to win yet. I want to kind of take a few days and then I'll release my prediction and whatnot. But Brian Castano, one, proficient offensively, can come forward. In that Patrick Teixeira fight and Erislandy Lara fight, he showed creativity with offense. He has a jab, he has a right hand, he has a left hook. He can throw punches and bunches with uppercuts. He is the goods. And when I tell you he could switch, he has good defensive awareness. He's not sloppy. He's not wide with his punches. He knows how to loop them where you have to change the trajectory of your shot, but it's not where he's like wide open and he could get countered. Now, my big fear for Charlo and why I think it's such a good, risky fight for him is Charlo would have eaten Teixeira alive. Yes, Teixeira was long, tall, tough guy, but Jermell Charlo would have put pressure on him and knocked him out, and he would have eventually broke down the lengthy, but in my opinion, someone who wears down very easily in Teixeira. You've seen it once before. The chin checker, Curtis Stevens knocked him out, ended up changing his style because he knew he couldn't bang. Castano hit him with some thumping power the whole night, beat him down. And truthfully, it was a brutal performance for Castano. He beat the shit out of Teixeira for 12 rounds. Now, my big fear for Charlo is you've seen it before with Harrison. You can frustrate him and you lure him into these firefights. And Charlo, I know you have power. I know you're a great boxer. Use your boxing ability against Castano. Castano may have the power advantage, in my opinion, in this fight due to his fast combinations. And he has one punch power. I'm not going to lie to you. You saw it against Lara. Lara was backing up the whole night. And it's a breakdown Erislandy Lara, who, honestly, there aren't many people that can say they've outboxed Erislandy Lara. Remember, Lara's lost to who? Paul Williams, who we all know he didn't win that fight. Lara won that fight. Canelo Alvarez, you can arguably say that Canelo lost that fight. A lot of people say it was 8-4 Lara. Personally, when I first saw it, I had an 8-4 Lara, and then upon rewatching it for that Billy Joe Saunders and Canelo fight, I could see it even or Canelo up by 1 or even Lara up by 1. That fight really was give and take, back and forth. Canelo looked flawed, but he did have some really good body shots and good counter shots. So Jarrett Hurd didn't outbox him. He had to basically wear him down and press him. The fight with Vanes Martirosyan, that was probably one of the worst fights we've ever seen. But not a lot of people can say they've outboxed Erislandy Lara. And Castano boxed him. Castano put intelligent pressure on him. He was smart. I thought Castano won the fight upon rewatching it, and I couldn't believe that. I don't know if I was tired or I missed it, but it was controversial. Lara stopped doing what he had to do, and that was a testament to Castano's vicious body attack and his thumping, consistent waves of punches. Jermell Charlo has a tendency to want to bang. This is not the guy you want to bang with. Now, if he moves and doesn't give any resistance, then he runs the risk of getting worn down. So I know Jermell Charlo is going to have to play the role of counter puncher, but at the same time, be a boxer puncher. You can't just sit there and bang with Castano, but I also feel like you can't just completely run. You have to give him something he's going to run into, hit him to the body, and really discourage Castano. Now, here's the reason why I think Castano is such a formidable opponent, and Charlo needs to get credit for it, is he has 200 amateur fights. And guess who he's beaten in the amateurs? Errol Spence Jr. and also Sergey Derevchenko. Now you're talking about two high class, high level A. You know what? I'm not going to go A class with Sergey Derevchenko. He's a formidable opponent, B plus, A minus. He's been at the highest level, but he always seems to fall a little short. Sure, he beat Triple G in some people's opinion, but that was a close fight. Rewatch it. But when he fought Charlo, he lost. It was clear. I think in this fight, Castaño could potentially pull off the upset. I'm not going to pick him. I think Jermell Charlo is destined to be undisputed, and I think he's going to come out on top. But we need to call a spade, and I know they call themselves Lions only. You got to call this guy the Lion King if he wins, because Castaño's no joke, and give credit where credit's due. Forget the watches, forget the flash, forget the brash, forget all of that stuff. Put it to the side and just give this man credit for his boxing ability if he does win this fight. If Brian Castaño wins, give him credit because the 200 amateur fights, the ability to upset the person you have to upset in order to be undeniably the contender, in order to fight for an undisputed fight, you have to win hard fights in order to do so. In that Teixeira fight, opportunity met luck, and guess what happened? Now he's fighting Jermell Charlo for all the marbles at 154. I think this is one of the most exciting fights. I think it could potentially be fight of the year, especially if Charlo decides to do what Charlo does, and that's trade. Castaño is going to be there to trade, right? He wants to box. He can do that, but Castaño wants to put some leather on you. And I think in this fight, you're going to see some high-level inside fighting. You're going to see Charlo. I don't know yet, but it's going to be a good fight. Stylistically, the temperament of Charlo, his not inability, but his tendency to not want to run. If Castaño hits him with something, he's going to try to fire back, and that could backfire, but it could also give us a fantastic fight. And we got to give credit to Charlo, because undisputed, you undeniably become in the Hall of Fame. In my opinion, you have to be in the Hall of Fame if you become undisputed. I know it's belts. People say, oh, there's a million belts, but in this day and age, it's so hard to meet every mandatory, to fight every guy that wants to fight you and be on your P's and Q's. And if Charlo does it, you may not agree with who he's beaten to get there, but to do it is still a feat. People thought Lomachenko had a done deal when he was going to become undisputed, and then he ran into a young champion. And now, who's to say Charlo doesn't run into another Teofimo, someone that doesn't give a fuck and is willing to do whatever it takes to win? And excuse my French, excuse my language, but this fight has me excited, and it should have you excited too. So let's give Charlo props. No one's talking about this fight. It hasn't gotten the coverage. And in my opinion, I don't feel like it's getting the accolades, including by myself, that it needs to, especially when you look back at who Castaño is. You mix him with Charlo. Guys, this might be the fight of the year, honestly. And that's the episode for today. Don't forget to punch that like button, smash that notification bell, and be well. Okay, follow on Instagram at Good Boxing Podcast. You guys know the drill. Thank you. We hit 150 subscribers. Let's get to 200 and let's keep pushing forward. Thank you so much. I can't believe it. Be well.